Hey, everybody. Ever get that feeling where you kind of freeze up when you try to speak a new language? Like you're so worried about messing up that you just stay silent?
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Well, today we're going to dive deep into that, how to flip that fear and actually use it to learn better.
Sounds good.
For this deep dive, we're looking at this really cool article called Embracing Mistakes as Learning Opportunities.
It's a good one. Really challenges how we usually think about making mistakes. Yeah.
Totally. And it starts off with this super relatable scene. Imagine you're at this busy cafe and you want to order your first cappuccino in Italian.
Okay, I'm with you.
So you've been practicing the phrase, you know it by heart, but suddenly your mind goes totally blank.
Oh.
You hesitate because you don't want to mess up the grammar or pronounce it all wrong.
Been there.
Right. I think we all have.
Definitely.
So the article goes into the whole psychology of why we get so scared to speak.
It's really interesting.
It is. They talk about common fears like worrying about being judged or that pressure to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. And even cultural expectations,
Yeah.
Some cultures are just more strict about proper language.
Totally. And what I found super interesting was how the article connects these fears to actually practicing less.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. We get so scared of making mistakes that we end up speaking less.
Which makes us improve slower.
Exactly. It's this weird cycle.
For sure. We avoid talking because we don't want to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But not talking means we're not learning and getting better.
A total catch-22, right?
Yep.
But here's where it gets good. The article then talks about this big mindset shift that can totally change your language learning.
It's like a light bulb moment.
It really is. So instead of thinking of mistakes as failures, what if we saw them as valuable feedback?
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Right. Every time we stumble over grammar or mispronounce a word, it's actually showing us where we need to focus.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
Makes sense.
And the article has this great example about someone learning Spanish who kept having trouble with verb tenses.
Oh, I hate those.
Me too. But instead of getting discouraged, they use those mistakes as a guide and just practice those tricky conjugations like crazy.
And did it work?
Totally. Their understanding of verb tenses went way up.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. And it makes sense because when we make a mistake and then try to correct it, that information sticks in our brains better.
So it's we're highlighting the important stuff.
Exactly. So it's not just saying mistakes are okay. It's saying they're actually good for learning.
I'm starting to see it now.
Right. It helps us figure out what we need to work on. It makes us understand things better. And it even encourages us to take more risks when we practice.
That's huge.
It is. It's all about changing that voice in our head from, oh, I messed up, I'm so bad at this, to, I messed up, now I know what to focus on.
Love that.
Me too. It's such a powerful shift. So we've been talking about how mistakes can actually help us learn a language.
Yeah, it's they're these little secret helpers pushing us toward fluency.
I like that. But how do we go from being scared of making mistakes to welcoming them?
Right. It's not always easy.
Not at all. So how do we turn those oh moments into aha, I got this moments?
Well, the article talks about this thing called a growth mindset and how important it is for language learning.
Okay, I've heard of that, but can you remind me what it's all about?
Sure. Basically, it's the idea that we can always improve our abilities.
So instead of thinking I'm just bad at languages,
Yeah.
we'd say something like, I'm learning and getting better every day, even when I make mistakes.
Exactly. And that mindset is so important, especially when things get tough.
Oh, for sure. Like when we hit a wall or keep making the same mistakes over and over.
It's easy to get discouraged, but a growth mindset helps us see those moments as opportunities to learn and grow.
So instead of seeing a mistake as proof that we're not good at something,
We see it as a chance to get better.
I like that. And the article also talks about how important it is to have a supportive environment when we're learning.
Oh, definitely. If we're constantly worried about being judged, it's way harder to embrace those mistakes.
It's like when you're learning to ride a bike and everyone's yelling, be careful, don't fall.
Oh, yeah. You just tense up and end up falling anyway.
Right. It's the same with language learning. We need a space where we feel safe to experiment and make mistakes without feeling like people are judging us.
Totally. And the article suggests finding language partners or tutors who are patient and understanding.
Yeah. People who see mistakes as a normal part of learning, not as a sign of failure.
And who can give you helpful feedback that makes you feel good, not bad.
Right. It's all about finding those people who are in your corner, cheering you on, and helping you through the ups and downs of language learning.
And it's not just about the people you surround yourself with, it's also about the resources you use.
Oh, yeah, like those podcasts and apps that are super encouraging and positive.
Exactly. There are so many great resources out there that can help you stay motivated and feel good about your progress.
And it can be so inspiring to hear from other learners who have been there and made those mistakes.
For sure. Their stories remind us that we're not alone and that fluency is totally possible, even with all the bumps along the way.
Speaking of motivation, the article also talks about how to stay motivated, even when we're feeling discouraged.
Which happens to everyone at some point.
Totally. So how do we keep going when we hit those plateaus or make a bunch of mistakes in a row?
Well, the article says it's really important to remember why we started learning the language in the first place.
Like, what's our big goal?
Exactly. Is it to connect with family who speaks another language? Or to travel the world more easily?
Or maybe to open up new job opportunities.
Whatever it is, it's important to keep that goal in mind, especially when we're feeling down.
It can be that little spark that reminds us why we're putting in all this effort.
And the article also gives some practical tips for staying motivated, like setting realistic goals.
Oh yeah, we can't expect to become fluent overnight.
Definitely not. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
And it's okay to have days where we don't feel like studying or when we make a ton of mistakes.
Those days are totally normal. They're just part of the journey.
It's all about recognizing those off days, learning from them, and then getting back on track.
Progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
Hey.
And it's important to remember that progress can look different for everyone.
Some people might want to focus on speaking fluently, while others might prioritize reading and writing.
It's all about figuring out what works best for you and celebrating your own unique learning journey.
And remembering that every mistake, every stumble, every oops moment is a chance to learn and grow.
So true. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the mindset stuff, but I'm curious to hear more about specific techniques for turning those mistakes into fluency boosters.
Me too. There's so many cool strategies out there.
Okay, so we're back and ready to talk about some practical techniques.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to use those mistakes to actually improve.
Exactly. And we've talked before about keeping a language journal to keep track of our mistakes.
It's a classic for a reason.
But how do we make that journal more than just a list of, messed up words and stuff?
Right, like how do we make it actually helpful for learning?
Exactly.
Well, it's all about adding more context.
Context.
Yeah, like instead of just writing down the mistake and the correction, you also write about what you were thinking when you made the mistake.
Oh, okay. So what led me to mess up?
Exactly. So instead of just saying, I said libro instead of libra for book in Spanish.
You'd also write something like, I mixed them up because they sound so similar and I need to pay more attention to gendered nouns.
Yeah. That way you're figuring out the root of the problem and it'll help you avoid making the same mistake again.
So the journal becomes like a roadmap of my learning.
I love that. A roadmap to fluency.
I'm into it. Okay, now what about this error-based practice thing?
Oh, that's a good one.
It sounds kind of intense, though.
It's not as scary as it sounds, I promise.
Okay, good.
It's basically about using your mistakes to create really targeted practice.
So if I keep messing up the conditional tense in French, I should just focus on practicing that specific tense.
Exactly. You're zeroing in on your weak spot and turning it into a strength.
It's like a laser-focused workout for my brain.
Exactly. And speaking of workouts, what about the shadowing technique?
Yeah, we talked about that a little before.
It's a really cool way to work on pronunciation and fluency.
But how does it actually work?
Okay, so you find a recording of a native speaker talking about something you're interested in.
Okay.
And you basically try to talk along with them. Mimic their pronunciation, their rhythm, how their voice goes up and down.
So I'm like their echo.
Exactly. And as you're doing that, you'll notice the spots where you trip up or hesitate.
And those are my learning moments.
Exactly. It helps you figure out those little tricky parts of the language that you might not even realize you're struggling with.
I'm starting to see how all these techniques connect.
Me too. It's all about using those mistakes to our advantage.
It's like we've been given this secret code to language learning.
And the mistakes are the clues that help us crack the code.
I love that. So to everyone listening out there, don't be afraid of those stumbles and those oops moments.
They're just a sign that you're learning and growing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keep practicing, keep experimenting, and keep embracing those mistakes because they're going to get you where you want to be.
Fluency is waiting for you.
Yeah.
Just got to keep going and don't give up.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Ah.
And hey, maybe someday you'll be sharing your own language learning journey and inspiring others to embrace their mistakes too.
That would be awesome.
It would. So until next time, keep up the amazing work and remember, those mistakes are your friends.
Happy learning, everyone.